Dust and smoke covered the battlefield. The ground was black from fire, and broken machines lay like metal skeletons across the plain. An alien girl, her armor cracked and her breathing heavy, stood with her energy blade glowing weak in her hand. Her arms shook from exhaustion, but she did not lower her weapon. Around her, enemy war machines moved closer, their red eyes glowing like predators ready to finish the hunt. She had been fighting for hours, maybe days, and her people were gone. Some fled, others had fallen. Now she was alone, and her legs barely held her upright. The first machine lunged forward, claws reaching for her throat. She swung her blade, sparks flying as she struck its chest. It staggered back but did not fall. She bit down hard, forcing her body to move faster, striking again and again. The machine finally crashed to the ground, but two more stepped over it, their shadows falling across her. Her chest burned as she gasped for air. Sweat and blood blurred her sight, but she refused to kneel. She told herself that if this was her last stand, then she would make it one the enemy never forgot. A roar cut through the smoke. She spun, blade ready, thinking another enemy had come. But what she saw made her freeze. A human soldier stepped out of the flames. His armor was torn, his left shoulder dripping blood, and his weapon sparking with low power. She remembered hearing that all humans had left days ago. She thought they had abandoned this fight, but here he was, walking through fire like it was nothing. His face was dirty, his eyes sharp, and he raised his weapon toward the machines. "You fought well," he said, voice steady though his body shook with pain. "But you're not alone." The words stunned her more than the enemy's claws. She wanted to scream at him to leave, to run, because he looked weaker than her. Yet when the machines charged, he fired without hesitation. Blue light ripped through the metal frames, tearing one apart. The other swung at him, claws scraping across his armor. He staggered but did not fall. She darted forward, slicing the machine's legs before it could strike again. Together, they brought it down. For a moment, silence pressed on them. She looked at the human, confused and angry at the same time. "Why are you here? Your kind abandoned us." He reloaded his weapon with shaky hands. "I didn't." Before she could argue, more machines appeared, crawling from the ruins. Their eyes glowed red, their claws clattering on stone as they surrounded the two fighters. Her arms trembled, but the human moved to her side, standing back to back with her. The ground shook as the machines circled closer, their shadows stretching over the two warriors. The first machine leaped. The human rolled aside, blasting it in the chest. Another lunged for the alien girl, and she blocked with her blade, her strength failing. Suddenly, the human's shoulder hit her back, steadying her, giving her balance. They moved together, his weapon covering her blind spots, her blade striking the ones that got too close. It was not planned, not trained, but their movements began to match, like they had fought as one before. The machines pressed harder, their claws slicing through the air. Sparks burst as the human blocked with his damaged armor. Blood stained his side, but he never slowed. She saw his face, twisted with pain but set with determination. Something stirred inside her chest, something she had not felt since the war began. Hope. "Keep fighting," he shouted over the clash of metal. Her blade carved another machine apart. "I'm not stopping." They fought until the pile of broken machines grew around them. The ground became a graveyard of sparks and smoke. Still more came, endless and cold. Her breath grew short, her body weaker, and she feared her legs would give out. Then she felt the human's voice close to her ear. "Stand, I'll cover you." His words pushed her forward, forcing her to lift the blade once more. They stood back to back, human and alien, both broken, both bleeding, but still fighting. The battlefield roared around them, but neither would step away. Her arms ached so much she could barely lift her blade, but every time she stumbled, she felt his presence steadying her. The human moved with sharp bursts of energy, his weapon cracking against metal as he fired. She swung at another machine, and when her strength faltered, his shoulder pressed against her back, holding her upright. The battlefield was chaos, yet somehow they found rhythm. Two broken warriors moving as one. A machine charged from her left, claws raised high. She was too slow, too drained to react. But the human stepped in, ramming his body into the monster, firing point blank until its chest exploded in sparks. He was bleeding from the side, his armor dented, yet he turned back to her as if nothing mattered but keeping her alive. She hated that feeling in her chest, that mix of relief and anger. Why would a human do this? "Don't fall now," he muttered, eyes never leaving the enemy. "I wasn't planning to," she spat back, her voice sharper than she meant. Another wave rushed at them. The machines didn't care how tired they were. They came with grinding claws and flashing red eyes. She and the human moved back to back again, their breathing ragged but steady. Her blade flashed, his rifle cracked, sparks showered, and broken metal fell around their feet. Every time she thought she would collapse, his hand brushed her arm, or his shoulder bumped against hers, as if silently telling her to keep going. The enemy adjusted its tactics. Two machines pinned them from the front while a third leaped from above. She shouted a warning, but before she could strike, the human dropped his gun, caught the falling machine by its claw, and slammed it into the ground with all his weight. His roar echoed louder than the machine's screeches. He grabbed his weapon again and blasted its head apart before rolling back into position beside her. Her chest tightened. This man should not still be alive. His wounds were deep, his blood staining the ground with every step, but his eyes were steady. She realized his strength wasn't in his body, but in something else, something her people had never understood. A machine nearly cleaved through her back, but his weapon roared just in time, saving her again. She twisted, struck down another, and shouted, "Why do you fight? This isn't your war." His answer came through clenched teeth. "Because you're not supposed to fight it alone." Her throat tightened, but she said nothing. The machines kept coming, and the only thing keeping her from falling into the dirt was the human beside her. Their blades, their shots, their movements cut through the enemy like one heartbeat, each covering what the other could not. And though she had never trusted humans, though she once believed them weak, she felt something shift inside her. The pile of dead machines grew taller, smoke choked the air. Their bodies screamed with pain, but they still stood. She stole a glance at him, his face smeared with blood and ash, his jaw set with grim determination. He looked like a man who had already accepted death, yet refused to let it come without defiance. When the next wave surrounded them, the alien girl no longer thought of herself as alone. She matched her steps to his, letting his strength carry her when hers failed. For the first time, she began to believe they might survive this nightmare together. The ground was slick with oil and blood, and the smell of smoke burned her throat. She dragged her blade through the dirt, every breath heavier than the last. The human stood nearby, leaning against a half-destroyed wall, clutching his side where blood seeped through cracked armor. His weapon clicked empty, yet he didn't let it drop. She watched him, confused. Any normal soldier would have collapsed by now. "You're hurt," she said, her voice sharper than intended. He smirked faintly, shaking his head. "Not the first time," she frowned. "You'll die if you keep pushing like this." His eyes flicked to hers, steady, unshaken. "Then I'll die fighting." The words struck her harder than the enemy's claws ever had. Her people had called humans fragile, weak, unsuited for true war. But this man, bleeding and broken, still stood ready. He lifted something from the rubble, and her breath caught. It was no ordinary weapon. It looked ancient, its metal engraved with strange patterns, humming faintly with a blue light that didn't belong to their technology. "Where did you find that?" she asked, stepping closer. "In the ruins," he said, voice low, almost reverent. "It was buried under the old stones. I think it's theirs." She froze. The forbidden relics of the ancients were not to be touched, not by her people, not by anyone. They were said to carry power too dangerous to wield. Yet here the human held it, the glow reflecting in his tired eyes. He ran his hand over the surface, and the weapon pulsed as if recognizing him. "It responds to you," she whispered, almost afraid. He gave a half smile. "Guess it knows we need help." The sound of metal grinding drew their attention. More machines were coming, their glowing red eyes cutting through the smoke. She felt her heart sink. She had little strength left, her blade was nearly drained, and the human was already half dead. He raised the relic, the blue light surging brighter. For a moment, even the machines seemed to hesitate, their steps faltering as if sensing the power within the weapon. He looked at her then, his face pale but his voice steady. "You can't fight like this anymore," he said. "But if this thing works, it might turn the tide." Her jaw tightened. "That weapon is forbidden. You'll destroy yourself." He gave a short, tired laugh. I'm already destroyed. The machines charged, and instinct overpowered fear. She leapt forward with her failing blade, striking the first enemy, while the human lifted the relic high. The air cracked and a wave of blue energy burst outward, slamming into the machines with a roar like thunder. Metal split apart, red eyes shattered, and the ground itself shook under the force. When the light faded, the human staggered, nearly collapsing. She caught his arm, her eyes wide, staring at the smoldering wrecks scattered across the battlefield. "You're insane," she whispered, half in awe, half in fear. He met her gaze, still standing though his legs trembled. "Maybe, but it kept us alive." She looked at him differently now. He was more than just a man fighting a war not his own. He had touched forbidden power and survived, something her people believed impossible. And though her heart raced with dread, another feeling grew beneath it. Hope that maybe the impossible was exactly what they needed. The ruins loomed ahead, jagged stone and twisted steel, rising like the bones of a dead world. Firelight flickered in the cracks, and the sound of enemy patrols echoed from deep inside. She limped forward, her blade dim at her side, every step heavy. The human moved beside her, slower now, one hand pressed against his wounded ribs, the other gripping the strange relic that still glowed faintly blue. His breathing was ragged, but his eyes remained locked on the fortress ahead. "Once we step in, there's no turning back," she said quietly, almost hoping he would stop. "I wasn't planning to turn back," he replied, his voice hoarse but steady. The entrance was guarded. 3 machines stood, their heads scanning the darkness, claws clattering against the stone. She raised her blade, but her arm trembled so badly the weapon nearly slipped from her grip. Before she could speak, the human placed a hand on her wrist. "Save your strength," he murmured. "I'll go first." She wanted to argue, but before the words came, he rushed forward. He moved with a strange mix of desperation and fury, his weapon firing in short bursts until the relic flared. The machines turned too late. The blue light tore through them like fire through paper. Sparks rained, metal screeched, and silence returned. The human staggered back, nearly falling. She caught his shoulder, holding him up despite her own weakness. "You'll burn yourself out," she hissed. He gave her a faint grin. "Then I'll burn bright enough to take them with me." Her throat tightened. She hated how those words struck her. She hated that they made her feel something other than fear. They moved deeper into the fortress, shadows swallowing them. The walls dripped with black oil and the air reeked of rot and smoke. Every step echoed like a warning. Her blade flickered weakly, the last of its energy fading. She stumbled once, her knees nearly giving way. His hand caught her, firm but gentle, steadying her again. She stared at him, at the blood running down his side, at the way he refused to bend under its weight. "Why?" she whispered, her voice cracking. "Why fight for me, for my people, when yours have left?" His grip tightened slightly, his eyes never leaving the path ahead. "Because no one should fight alone." The words cut through her like a blade sharper than any machine's claws. No commander of her kind had ever said something so simple. No warrior she knew had ever meant it. Her chest ached, not from exhaustion, but from the truth in his voice. They pushed forward together, deeper into the heart of the fortress. Shadows grew thicker, and the sound of machines closing in grew louder. She should have felt fear. Instead, with the human at her side, she felt something she thought had died long ago: strength. The fortress corridors twisted like a maze, lit only by the red glow of enemy eyes painted across the walls. Their footsteps echoed in the silence, the alien girl's blade barely sparking now, the human's relic glowing faintly in his grasp. The deeper they went, the heavier the air felt, as if the walls themselves wanted to crush them. She glanced at him, at the way his breathing grew uneven, but he didn't stop. His resolve kept dragging her forward even when her own strength faltered. A shadow moved ahead. Relief touched her chest when she saw the figure. It was one of her kind, a fellow soldier, armor scratched but intact. She quickened her pace, hope burning for the first time since the battle began. But the soldier's eyes didn't hold the warmth of an ally. Instead, there was fear and something darker, desperation. "You shouldn't have come here," the soldier muttered, his weapon rising, not at the machines, but at them. Her chest froze. "What are you doing? We're the same blood." "No," the soldier snapped, his voice shaking. "I've seen what happens to those who resist. The machines promised me safety. If I give them you, they'll let me live. Her heart sank as the truth hit her harder than any enemy strike. Her people had abandoned her before, but betrayal this close, here in the ruins, felt like a blade in her chest. She raised her weak blade, but her arms shook too much to lift it properly. The human stepped forward, his body angled between her and the traitor, even though he could barely stand. "So you'd sell her life for your own?" he said, voice low and sharp. The soldier's hand trembled on the trigger. "You don't understand. They can't be beaten. I'm not dying here." The human's expression hardened. "Then you've already lost." The shot came fast. She gasped, but before she could move, the human had already shoved her aside, the blast grazing his shoulder instead. He raised the relic, its blue light flaring bright, forcing the traitor to stumble back. For a moment, the whole corridor shook with its hum, drowning out the soldier's panicked cries. She stared at the human, her heart pounding. He bled freely, his face pale, but his voice was calm when he turned to her. "Don't look at him, look at me." Her chest burned, her breath unsteady. He didn't say more, hand, didn't scold or command. He simply stood, shielding her with his battered body as if he were her whole army. The betrayal of her comrade hurt, but the presence of the human dulled the pain, replacing it with something stronger. The soldier ran, disappearing into the shadows, leaving only silence behind. She gripped her fading blade tighter, anger and sorrow twisting inside her. "Even my own people," she whispered. The human glanced at her, his voice rough but unyielding. "Then I'll be your people." The words hung heavy between them, burning hotter than fire, and though the machine stirred deeper in the fortress, she no longer felt abandoned. For the first time, she truly believed she was not facing this war alone. The silence after the betrayal did not last long. A low rumble shook the walls, dust falling from the cracked ceiling. The machines were awake, stirred by the soldiers' cowardice. Red lights glowed from the far end of the corridor, growing brighter with every step. The alien girl tightened her grip on her failing blade, though the light from it was almost gone. Beside her, the human adjusted his hold on the relic, the strange blue glow pulsing like a heartbeat in his hands. His face was pale, his wounds deep, yet his eyes carried a fire that refused to die. The first wave came fast, their claws scraping sparks as they charged through the narrow passage. She swung weakly, sparks scattering as her blade barely cut through one. Another lunged, its claw about to pierce her chest. The human slammed into it with his shoulder, ignoring the pain, and fired the relic. A surge of blue energy erupted, tearing the machine apart. The blast rattled the walls and nearly dropped him to his knees, but he forced himself back up. "Stay with me," he muttered, his breath heavy. Her heart pounded. Every part of her screamed to collapse, yet his words lit something inside her. She stepped forward, her blade catching another machine across the neck. The strike wasn't strong enough to kill it, but the human's shot finished the job. They moved together again, step for step, his fire covering her weak strikes, her blade cutting down those that slipped past him. The enemy did not stop. More poured in, crawling along the walls, leaping from the ceiling, filling the corridor with a storm of metal and glowing eyes. She screamed as she fought, her voice raw from exhaustion, while the human roared back with his weapon, every blast shaking the fortress. The machines mocked them with sheer numbers, but still they did not break. One of the larger machines smashed through the wall, towering above them. Its claws swung with crushing force. She stumbled, barely rolling aside. The human stood his ground, raising the relic high. Blue light cracked the air as he fired a burst that shattered the giant's chest in a wave of sparks. The recoil threw him to the ground, his weapon nearly slipping from his hands. She rushed to him, pulling him up with the last of her strength. "You'll kill yourself," she shouted, fear breaking through her voice. He gave her a bloody grin. "Better me than you." The words cut deep, leaving her shaken. He wasn't her kin, wasn't her ally by blood, yet he fought like her life was worth more than his own. She felt her chest tighten, not from exhaustion, but from the weight of what he carried for her. The machines shrieked in fury, pressing harder, but together they pushed back. Each swing, each shot, each ragged breath became a declaration that they would not bow. Her people had mocked humans as fragile, unfit for real battle, but here he was, bleeding, broken, and still stronger than all of them. By the time the last machine fell in pieces at their feet, the corridor was a graveyard of twisted metal. Smoke choked the air, and silence pressed in once more. She stood hunched, gasping, her blade flickering out completely. He leaned against the wall, nearly collapsing, his hand clutching the relic like it was part of his soul. She looked at him, her chest heaving, and for the first time in her life, she believed the enemy was wrong. Humans were not weak, not this one. And if she was to survive what came next, it would be because he refused to leave her side. The final chamber was vast, lit by the glow of molten rivers running beneath the cracked floor. The ceiling arched high, broken open to the night sky where smoke drifted past the stars. At the center of the chamber stood the last of the enemy's command machines, a towering figure of steel and red light, its body bristling with weapons. The alien girl's knees threatened to give way, her body shaking with each breath, but she tightened her grip on her useless blade. The human stood beside her, swaying on his feet, his face pale, his armor shattered, yet his hand still clutched the relic. Its blue light pulsed faintly, waiting for him to call on it one last time. The machine's voice thundered across the chamber. "Surrender. You are broken flesh. You are already dead." The girl raised her chin despite the tremor in her arms. "If I fall standing." The human coughed, blood on his lips, but his voice was steady. "And if she falls, I'll carry her." The machine advanced, its heavy steps shaking the ground. Blades unfolded from its arms, spinning with deadly hums. The girl tried to lift her blade, but it fizzled out, its power finally gone. For a moment, despair clawed at her chest. Then the human moved forward, placing himself between her and the machine, raising the relic with both trembling hands. The blue glow surged brighter than before, as if feeding on the last pieces of his strength. He didn't look back at her, but his voice carried, strong enough to cut through the roar of the machine. "You're not alone. Not now. Not ever." The relic erupted with light, a wave so powerful it ripped through the chamber. The machine staggered, its armor splitting, sparks flying like rain. It let out a metallic scream, trying to push forward, but the human held firm, forcing the weapon's energy into its core. The girl found her strength again, just enough to leap forward and drive the broken hilt of her blade into the machine's chest where the blue light seared. Together, their strike tore it apart. The explosion threw them both across the chamber. Heat and dust filled the air. When the silence finally came, the machine's body lay in ruins, smoke rising from its shattered core. The girl pushed herself up, every bone in her body screaming, and crawled toward the human. He lay on his back, chest heaving, eyes half closed, his hands still clutching the relic even as its glow dimmed. She reached him, pressing her hand against his bloodied armor. "You fool. You should be dead." His eyes flicked to hers, faint but steady, and his lips curled into the smallest of smiles. "Guess I'm harder to kill than they thought." Her throat tightened. She wanted to speak, but no words came. Instead, she helped him sit, her arm around his shoulders. For the first time since the war began, her body felt light, as if a great weight had lifted. Outside, the night was silent, the stars shining over a battlefield finally free of red eyes. She looked at him, bruised, broken, yet still alive, and whispered, "You fought well, too." His hand, still shaking, reached out and rested gently on hers. No vows, no speeches, only the quiet truth that in the end, neither of them had fought alone.